Having lived here for 14, 15 years, there's definitely what we've termed locally as the Downley effect, which as you come down the track and pull into the house, there's a definite decompression. It is a place of sort of solitude and refuge. The house is actually surprisingly cozy. It's a warm, inviting place to be. There is always a little corner to sit in where the sun is shining. It's a house that makes you feel very happy to be here. It was very much a move to the countryside. We didn't know what sort of house we wanted. It became readily apparent that it would actually be a fun thing to actually build something from scratch, if you could find a site. There's normally something about a site that is a compromise or is a major constraint. And that was the big difference arriving here. Close the car door and hear nothing other than birdsong. So having found the site, thoughts then turned to what sort of house to build. And obviously there was a significant portion of the existing house that was here. We opted for writing a very straightforward sort of architectural brief, just to say how many bedrooms we wanted. We didn't even stipulate the style of house or whether the old wall would be included as part of that. I started the search for the best local materials that I could, and the first place I went to was a quarry in East Sussex. And the owner of the quarry asked me if we had an architect. He introduced me to Andrew Birds. Andrew was the one that came up with the whole concept of maintaining the existing wall, but not having it as part of the new house. But it was a fabulous link, the contrast from what was here historically to the new contemporary house sitting next to it. And we spent 6 weeks with it fully scaffolded. We had to put a new flint cap, we had to put new sills. So it's nice to think that we've stabilised that wall, and it now provides a bit of context and a bit of history to the site as it was. Andrew was the one that came up with the progression of arriving on the site, the garage discreetly built into the hillside, and the sort of the movement of coming into the house and going right through the house, which culminates with going up the stairs onto the roof terrace and on into the gardens and the flower meadow. The process of working with Andrew particularly, he makes the process very easy because as well as being an amazing architect, he is also a fabulous artist. He will draw everything by hand. It makes it a lot easier for you to sort of envisage his thoughts. He could do drawings to sort of give you an isometric view of how the kitchen might look or how a bathroom might look. The whole build took just under 2 years. I can honestly say it was probably one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done. Sustainability was a very important factor. When you have the opportunity to build again a house from scratch, you want to build the best structure that you can. And obviously, particularly in this day and age with the cost of energy, you want to make it energy efficient. It was a great challenge, but very rewarding to make sure that the house is hugely insulated. We've built it really well so that it remains relatively light on maintenance. The decision we made early on to use wood for the structure, for 90% of it, there's a small portion of the house that has to be built structurally out of reinforced concrete, but the rest of it is all wood. We adopted the best technology that we could at the time, which was using a ground source heat pump with heat recovery, and that really minimises your reliance on anything other than electricity, which is useful in a remote location like this. And we try and hang on to as much heat within the house as we can with the heat exchange unit. It was very important to sort of pay respect to the naturality of the site. And by incorporating the oak and the stone, sticking to that palette of natural materials, I think it's allowed the house to sort of blend into its landscape, which it's done over the course of time. The two stairwells or turrets are very much like grain silos. They're shapes that you would generally find in the countryside. Where they're clever is how they've put them together and how they've made that work as a family home, which was the intent. The dining hall is certainly the most salient feature of the design because it's so unusual. It's 7 meters high, it has sliding doors that disappear completely into pockets. So it turns from what is essentially an indoor space during the right time of the year, it can become an indoor-outdoor space with the doors completely open, which is lovely because it brings in all of the sounds of outside. Typically, you can dine out on the western side. It's a lovely place to sit out under the umbrella and dine al fresco when the weather's nice and have breakfast out there or coffee. It just gives you great flexibility because you've got both sides to use. Having spent time in the wine business and having been fortunate enough to store a few bottles away, it's a lovely fun space for people to go into and to pick a bottle of wine to have with dinner and sit at the kitchen counter whilst I'm cooking. It's lovely that it's in such close proximity to the dining hall as well. So often in older houses, wine cellars are by their very name buried down in the ground for good reason, to keep the wine cool, but it's lovely to have a selection of wines close at hand and everyone enjoys going in there. They'd like to eat in there if they could, but it tends to get a bit chilly. There's often a perception that contemporary houses can be very austere, a lot of hard lines. And I think there was a big part of the design of Downley that was all about the curves, whether it's the external curves, whether it's the curve of the glass balustrading inside. And it helped us sort of form all of the unique spaces, of which there are quite a few. Everywhere you look, there's either a little corner, or there's a little facet, or there's a different or interesting shape. It's very generous in terms of its circulation space. The bridgeway link that takes you from one half of the house over to the other house is a generous space. People like to just come up here. If you're entertaining, it's a lovely place to just come up and look out the window and have a glass of wine and look into the countryside. One of the quirks of building and designing, to a certain degree, how you design as you go, is that we very readily realised we couldn't bend glass to this radius. So the lectern, or preaching pulpit, came to be, which is obviously a support bracket to hold the glass. And the guys who kindly built the dining table for us said that they would put a top on the bracket. So it's sort of become affectionately known as the lectern, and it's just a unique piece of design that we needed to incorporate just because we couldn't bend the glass to this particular radius, whereas we could for most of the rest of it. So I like to think of it as something that's come from a need, which makes it a little bit unique. Even with the best will in the world, you can't really design everything because you don't know how the space is going to work. But this is a classic example of just a lovely little space on what is essentially a landing. And the kids used to love perching here and either spying on me in the kitchen or people down in the dining hall. It's just a quirky little space, but it's a great place to come and just hang out, put your feet up, read a book, have a glass of wine. It's one of the unique spaces in the house. Similarly, with the doorway, we ended up opting, why not just put essentially a movable wall rather than a door? And it's the sort of thing that you end up with and you don't realise, but it's a great feature. Sunday morning, you're lying in bed and it gives you the full aspect of the valley, which is lovely. The roof terrace is certainly one of those places that has 360-degree views and you get sun really all day. You can have an umbrella up there, you can put a table up there, we've had planting and stuff up there. It's a great space to be, and I think it gives great flexibility in terms of how you use the space, whether you have people up there for a party, and we tried to build that flexibility into the house as well. Does the house have a sense of personality? If I had to name it, I would probably say it's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It comes alive, as a lot of houses do, when people are in them. It's about those fun-filled moments. It's a friendly, warm space, and I think the house is about having fun.